Hello, my name's Narajan, the host of Master of Your Crafts podcast. Learning from leaders who are continuously inspired, passionate, and driven to align with their soul purpose, sharing their gifts to bring healing to others. The music is composed by Rebecca Everett. Today is episode number 14, and we're going to be talking to Velentaya Reece, a vibrational linguistic who channels the language of light, the language of the Akash, and written codes to heal and expand an individual beyond the current timelines of disharmony to one which is in alignment with their soul blueprint. A trance channel for the Sirians, Pleiadians, and other groups. She's an open vehicle for many dimensions and consciousnesses. Transmitting the frequency of divine love and sacred light information from Source, her work aims to balance the physical, mental, emotional bodies, crystalline the DNA and reconnect humanity to Source, consciousness, and their divine gifts and purpose. Velentaya has used light and sound as a tool for shifting consciousness throughout her many incarnations in a multi-galactic universe. The Sirians serve as her gatekeeper. They assist in preparing the vibrations and bringing forth all the benevolent beings to transmit these divine frequencies. Every transmission is multisensory, experienced as these beings utilize her structure, consciousness, and vocal cords to interact in real time. The results create dimensional and vibrational shifts, creating rapid change and transformation in your life. Hello, Velentaya. So thank you so much for being available and sharing your wisdom and sharing your story with me. I'm excited to have this conversation with you, so thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you and to meet your audience as well.
Yes, this is going to be an interesting little conversation. So tell me, you have had quite the journey to be doing what you're doing. And in that process, no doubt have been challenged with who you are and what is it that defines you as who you are. What do you think that is now, looking from the past?
I think looking back at my life, I've always been a very driven person and really marching to the beat of my own drum. So I've never really been concerned with what society thinks or how I'm supposed to supposedly live my life, whether that be, be married by a certain age, have children by a certain age. That never was any part of my thought process.
Right.
And I would see friends doing that and getting very stressed out if they weren't, married by X age old or whatever it was. And I always thought it was kind of silly. So I've always marched to my own drum and been a believer in anything is possible and really trusting in that we're all meant to live a fabulous life and living from the heart and following whatever that is. And no matter what fears come up, because fears come up, and I've had many fears come up, but moving through them anyways and really pushing. And it's hard sometimes when you don't have support from family members. I have a mother who's very loving and concerned. So, always wanting the best for me. And I would say, oh, I'm going to do this. And I would get 1,000 reasons why that would not be possible for me. And so, never really taking too much putting too much stock in that and just doing it anyways. And I wouldn't say that I would push through to prove her wrong. That was never my motivation. It was more just like, no, we're meant to be happy and anything is possible. And if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to let her fear stop me from doing what I want to do. And I'm also not going to let her fear put me in fear, because, when the people who we love don't support us, that makes it harder sometimes. And that can actually take us off our path. So I really had to be strong in what I wanted and not let that bother me. When I moved to New York, I made that decision at 21 years old. I actually had come here and interviewed for a job, and I didn't get the job, and that was cool. I didn't get it. But then a week later, I got a phone call saying that the person they hired didn't work out, and if I wanted the job, I could have it, but I had to be there in 3 days. And I said, okay, I'll be there. And I hung up the phone and I was like, Mom, I have to move. And she was not happy. Wow. And so much so that she wouldn't drive me to the airport. And I packed everything I had into a suitcase and I came and I slept on someone's floor and figured it out as I went. And I look back on that and I was pretty tough. I often think, wow, I can't believe I did some of the things I did, because it was not easy when I moved here. I was sleeping on, there was this newspaper called The Village Voice, and you could go on there and you could find rooms. And I found myself, going through that paper and finding strangers and sleeping on their floor and being told I'd have to leave and dragging my suitcase and finding the next place. And it was hard. Found some $30 a night motels and did whatever I could to make this happen. So,
but that's put you in a position of where you are now.
Oh, for sure.
Learning the lessons of hardship and being able to stand in your own power and have the courage to really move forward in what you want to do.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was hard and there were tears and where am I going to go next? Oh my gosh, I have to move. And, but I always trusted that it was going to work out the way that it needed to work out.
Yes.
And but that's so important even now, right? We have to be in trust.
Yeah. But it's not an easy place to come from.
No.
It's not an easy place to get to, even when we don't have that support and that guidance and that, I want to even say, unconditional love from a family network or a partner or a relationship or our environment that can nurture us into that space. But I think in the same token, those are some of the biggest lessons that define who we are and what it is we're here to do. I know you had shared, yes, you'd moved to New York, and in our previous conversation, a little bit about you, about what you'd gone through living in New York and what your lifestyle looked like that shaped you to do what you're doing now. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Sure. I had almost 30 years in the television industry as a visual effects artist and lots of hours. I was also a designer and very creative. And I think that creativity, using the right brain all day long, being in that zone, really allowed me to be open to do this work, because you do have to be open and in a place of trust and really guided by your intuition. You're in that zone and you're in that flow. And I remember back in my television days when I would be working in that zone, someone might walk in the room and say something to me and I would have no idea what they just said, because I was in such a zone. And I think for this work that I do, these channeling of these languages, you have to disconnect from that conscious mind. It's also being in that zone.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm not creating something visually, I am in that space of stepping aside and letting the information flow.
Right.
So years and years and years of, I guess, training,
Yes.
but just in a different way, and just really how disconnecting from the conscious mind.
Yes. I find it really interesting of how we do get trained in our life for a greater calling, for a greater purpose, through our relationships or through what we do for a living. And I know I've had many experiences of working various contracts and getting repositioned out and restructured out, or a contract closing early, or any of those scenarios. We've had them, but really coming back to the space of, there's a great reason behind that.
Right.
There's a greater lesson. There's more resilience or more courage that needs to be developed, or more boldness, or something that is in play for something else.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even with the TV stuff. So, a lot of my work was working on beauty commercials. So I would retouch all the famous models and actors, but I also designed stuff. So I had that design skill and that knowledge of using Photoshop and Illustrator. And so now when I'm channeling these light codes, I can actually make these beautiful compositions because I have that background.
That's right. Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, totally amazing how it all kind of connects.
It is. Yes. I'm a true believer we are dealt and positioned where we are for a greater purpose and a greater reason. There's no doubt in my mind, even how I came across your information. I saw you on an interview on another podcast, and there was just a draw, and there was just something that spoke to me in what you do, and how you craft the language, and how you channel the information and share it with the world. So pivotal, and I think is a huge endeavor, even to be able to do that for others. So do you feel that that is your calling, and having the attributes that you have is for a greater purpose and intention? And what would that be?
I mean, I definitely feel that it's my calling. When I was at this crossroads in my life when the languages came, and, the universe kind of stepped in and was like, okay, it's time for you to wake up. I had lost my relationship. I had lost that career that I was so tied to. My company closed, and I'd been there for, I think it was 15 years. And everybody else, the owners of the company, got everyone else a job but me. And I was told, oh, you'll be fine. You're tough. You're strong. You can do it. And so I kind of was left like, oh my gosh, like I was at my rock bottom, right? Even though I was miserable in that job at that time, there's still comfort in misery because we know it, and it's that daily routine. And I was at that place where I want to leave, but I'm not going to leave unless something forces me to leave. And that's exactly what happened. So too fearful to leave it on my own.
Yes.
But, finally the universe said, well, we're going to put you in more fear, and we're going to put you on that next path. And that's what happened. And I was asking the question, what am I supposed to do next? Am I supposed to teach, take a class? What is it? And then these languages came. And so I knew then that was the answer that I had been looking for. I knew that was the piece of the puzzle. I had studied Reiki, and I knew that Reiki wasn't the thing. It was just the doorway that was open the door to the thing that was supposed to come. And that's what happened. And so with these languages, they've transformed my life incredibly. I was my first client, and I spoke these languages to myself all day long. And I saw how dramatically my life changed and shifted. And I believe I was shown that because I needed to see the power of the work and what was possible. And so when I was speaking these languages all day long for days and days, I had cleared so many timelines and cleared karma. And I was a different person after that. I was catapulted into these months of bliss and joy and love and connection. And it was incredible. And it was 4 months of being in this higher dimensional reality. And I knew then and there I would get these intuitive hits. I don't know if they were voices or just knowings, but being told that this is truly who you are, this love and this joy and this bliss, and this is possible. This work showed you that this is possible to be in that space. And so even though now, I'm not in that heightened state, I surely know and often point back to that whenever I'm feeling down or just out of alignment. I can honestly get back there very quickly because I have that frame of reference. And so really just wanting to share these codes with people because I know how transformative they are. I want people to be in that place. I want people to live their most inspired life and really align and know and trust that it's possible. People don't believe it's possible, but it is. And no one's special. Anybody can get there. You just really have to trust and believe it, and believe that for yourself, and believe that it's possible for yourself.
So powerful, and yet so courageous for you to live with such purpose and such intention of, be it from when you was working in as a visual artist, that clear mind, that intention, that courage to charge forward and make something of yourself, so to speak, as we go through the roles of society that we want to be seen and visible and acknowledged, I guess, right?
Right.
And then recognizing that shift. So even, and I don't know, maybe there was an underlying intention with you of, I want something else. So the intention of it in itself, of how you can craft the next portion of your life in such a beautiful way, just presented itself, is so powerful.
Yeah, I think intention is so important, and intention really drives our life in many ways. And I find it so funny because when I had first started doing my Reiki training, my teacher always talked about intention and how important intention was. And I was so not even there mentally. I had no idea what she was talking about.
Right.
And now looking back with these eyes, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I didn't understand this, but I was just in a completely different place.
Yes.
And I did have that intention when my life spiraled out. I knew to look within, and I knew that if I wanted something to change, that I needed to change things within me. And that was a big realization for me. And that was, I guess, divine guidance. It had to been, because I was I was in a bad place. And like I told you when we talked, I started with mirror work. It sounds so easy, and it was the hardest thing for me to do, to look in that mirror for five minutes a day and say, I love you. Oh my gosh, I couldn't do it. I would burst into tears. And I would say about 3 weeks in, I was able to do it. And I thought, wow, I'm not crying anymore. That's amazing. And, just showing up and always having that intention to figure out what is next. And that was my purpose at that time.
I find it so beautiful when we can tap into that innate being of who we are, even if we don't logically understand it or consciously understand what we're doing. But there's an innate being for us to navigate life and use that compass that will guide us into doing certain things, be it the mirror work or be it driving yourself to the airport because your mom is upset that you're going to leave in 3 days.
Right.
Like, you just figure it out. There's something greater, something more significant that gives you that wisdom. And it doesn't have to always show up in a course or a presentation or, as overtly as you need to now listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
The sounds and the messages, I find, can be so acute and so subtle and so gentle that we miss them because
True.
Because that kindness is lost. And
Right.
I think you have felt that, having, if I can say boldly, escaped while working for 30 years the outside noise by just channeling and zoning in to what you do just in that space. So listening and crafting that aspect of you.
I think it's so important to listen to that inner voice. And I try to tell clients, because they always have a lot of questions about, well, how do you know what's the right way, or what's the answer? And I always say it's that first answer that you get when something's presented to you, a situation, an opportunity. It's that first knowing that you get. And then that's your soul, that's your heart and soul, that's your higher guidance. But then our human minds like to kick in and well, what about this? Well, I don't know, maybe I have to wait. And then we start to talk ourselves out of it. So I think it's so important to listen to that first hit you get.
Yes.
And really try and guide yourself with that.
Yeah. And not second guess it.
Right.
Not second guess it.
Yeah, the ever questioning human mind likes to do that, right?
It's a computer. It's going
Right.
to keep running. It's going to keep running. I think it's so interesting how, were there snippets of time when you were, before you got to the space that you have, of what it would have felt like connecting with your soul, or connecting with a spirit, connecting with something greater? What were those moments like that really captured that for you?
I think that, as a child, I would have these experiences during dream time where I would find myself on ships. And I didn't think too much about it as a kid. It was combined with sleep paralysis when I would come back into the body. And that was several months. It was a window in time when I was a child. And often after that, it would always be during dream time. I would have these beautiful, lovely experiences on these ships. And at times I would wake up with tears in my eyes because I didn't want to come back to Earth, right? I was with my family on these ships. And so just knowing that there was something else out there, there was this divine love that I would feel during dream time. And again, it's not something I continued to think about afterwards, but when it was happening, it was quite beautiful. So I always had that interest. I would go to psychics or whatever it was. I had an interest in this thing. I had a belief. I knew that there was something else.
Right. How was that framed within your environment, your family environment, your relationship with your mother, your, internal, external family?
I was brought up Catholic, right? I did that and I had to do that. So I didn't really talk about these things with my mom. I remember me and my sister, we might have went to a psychic together and we told my mom, and we'd kind of have a chuckle about it, about what was said or whatnot. So there wasn't like, we weren't banned against doing it,
right?
But it just wasn't a big part of the conversation. I didn't really talk about the dream time stuff. And it was something that wasn't a part of I was still very much just living a normal life. So it wasn't stuff I really thought about after it happened.
Right.
But when I moved to New York, before I started speaking the languages, even before I was going down the path, I was still very much in the matrix. I was getting signposts and little things to kind of nudge me in that direction, whether it be waking up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water and seeing this spaceship outside, like just
Wow.
right there. Or one night I woke up and went to get water and laid back down. My dog was going crazy. I have a terrace off of my bedroom, and I thought, she's not, why is she continuing to bark? Like, this isn't normal.
Yes.
This is like a bark that she sees something. And lo and behold, there was this being on my terrace.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I had like, holy cow, like, I wasn't expecting, I was not in this place in my life at that time. So to see that was quite frightening to me.
Yeah.
My heart was pounding. My dog is going crazy. I see this being there, this tiny little thing. And it was gentle. It didn't look harmful. It was just staring at me. So, I had these little signposts happening, but nothing to really thrust me into it until I had the dissatisfaction at work. And I just felt like there's got to be something more than what I'm doing. Because even though I loved the creativity, the hours were draining, and I was living to work. And so that's kind of what I started looking back on that and being, I wonder what that was. And maybe I should look into some energy work. So I those were little seeds that kind of helped me.
Yes. Yes. Reminds me of the whole Hansel and Gretel kind of story. We follow the little breadcrumb trail all the way and see where it leads us.
Right.
And I think that's an evolving story, an evolving process.
Completely.
Yeah. So you're channeling these light languages, and you're supporting and guiding people through their journey to awaken to something greater and something more powerful.
Yes.
What's that process like for the client and also for you? Have you had some nuggets where you're in a client session and it's changed you from that situation as well?
Yeah, for sure. Because whenever I speak the languages, who's ever on the receiving end of that is getting their activation, I'm getting it as well. So I recently had a client that was connecting with a new group of beings, she said, and she thought she was supposed to start channeling them. And she felt that they were very powerful. She said she could feel their strength. And in that session, these new languages had come out just from those beings. I could feel their presence there. I could feel their energy. I could feel their frequency. It was very strong and joyful and loving. And I was giggling as I was speaking these languages, and new ones had come out, and I often connect with them now. So it kind of opened up that pathway for me, just opening another door or a new acquaintance, so to speak.
Right.
New beings to work with. So for me, it did that. And then for the clients, it can do anything from connecting them to their purpose, to their awakening their gifts. I've had people email me and say they've listened to some of my recordings and they started speaking themselves.
Wow.
Or just activating other gifts for them. If, not everybody is meant to speak the languages, but it can activate whatever gifts you have. It can do anything from healing injuries or, bad knees or bad backs, or it just depends on the person and where they are vibrationally. And it's just, I like to just say it puts you into alignment. So when you're moving into alignment, all the stuff that doesn't support that is going to fall away. Right. So I just think instead, I don't like people to look at it as releasing things or getting rid of things. Just look at it as coming into who you are and coming into your divinity. And when you do that, those other things that don't support that will no longer be a part of your reality.
Right. I love that. And I think it's also interesting how you've had such an array of feedback from clients, from a physical element to opening a gift or, exposing an innate gift that's within them to anything else. But I think it really comes down to that piece of intention when they come to see you, when they come to connect with you for whatever purpose. It's what's there embedded intention behind that conversation, which I think is really
Exactly.
powerful.
I think that's a big part of it for sure. Like intention and trusting in the work. And sometimes the best clients are people who have no idea. Like the guy that had the bad knee, he never did work like that. He'd gone to tons of doctors and he said, I'm just in so much pain. I believe that you can help me. So let's just do it. And the next day he wasn't limping anymore. He had no pain and he had been limping for like 3 years. So it just depends on trusting and your intention and belief, trust and belief and knowing.
It's powerful. That's pretty, that's powerful. That puts traditional medicine in a whole different ballgame.
Yeah. I mean, we're so powerful as individuals and just, I just provide that space for people to tap into that, their own healing frequency. And we all have it, right? It's just sometimes we can't access it because there's something covering that. So this work will uncover that thing so that you can access it.
Absolutely. So where do you go from here? So now I feel like you have a few different type of languages or beings that you're kind of connecting with. So what's next for you? You've harnessed this energy and this skill and this craft of channeling and honing this message and relaying it and supporting to others. What's next?
I think it's getting the work out there and making it accessible to people, getting a bigger audience, because I do believe that these codes are meant to help humanity. And I think too, using my television background to bring the work in that way, whether it be through documentary work or some sort of show or program. So using that background to just have another avenue to get it out there.
Yes.
And seeing if, we always have gifts opening up. Who knows if something else will come my way or to support what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
Just being open to that.
Yeah.
But most importantly, just making sure that the codes are heard.
Yeah. I'm sure something magical will show up. I have no doubt that it will.
I think so. I'm, like we talked about, I'm making this move. And once I get out of New York and get into a calmer environment, I do believe that is the next phase of this unfolding.
Yes.
So I'm excited to see what will happen.
Yeah. It's also interesting to see how when we move from one location to another, be it an apartment, be it a country, be it a city, how that changes our own vibration, how that changes our own intention and purpose and connection to who we are. So moving out from New York City, which is a very busy city, lots of things going on all the time, to a calmer, quieter, more serene kind of environment that will shift things for you on a whole different level, just as for me, it did the other way around. So I came out of a calmer, serene kind of environment and I came into the city. And into the city, it's transitioned me in a different space.
Right.
So
yeah, it's amazing. I'm sure things are going to happen. I feel that they are. Like I have that internal guidance forever telling me it's time to leave, it's time to leave. So once I got past that fear of actually leaving, now I'm very excited about what's next, the next chapter.
Yes.
Stepping out of the comfort zone when it's no longer serving you, which is what I'm doing.
Yes.
And open to see what's next.
And truly aligning with your soul on a constant basis, I feel, right? So when you can stay in alignment to that, it does flow, but yet we live in a life where that's constantly challenged.
Yeah, I don't like to say it's a job, but it is a practice, and it's constant paying attention constantly to your own transformation. I have to work at, because I want to be the best version of me for my clients, I have to be a clean and clear vessel. So for me, that has meant, I don't want to say giving up things, but I no longer watch news or television shows that might get me stressed out or nervous. You know, I used to really get into scary things, and I don't watch that stuff anymore. And it was an easy transition, just because I knew it wasn't serving my highest good to be a clear vessel, or even like, you know, friends wanting to go out, and I'm not going to go to a bar and sit in a bar. That's just not something I'm going to do, because I don't want that energy affecting me. So it's making these little changes, and sometimes the people around you aren't on board with that, right? But for me, it's very important to stay in that clear space and adapt, and great things open up when I give those things away anyway. So it just makes space for more supportive stuff.
Absolutely. But it's also a courageous step from shifting from that social norm that we are so ingrained with. Because granted, we can feel, see, and recognize a higher energy and a higher being and a higher purpose. But it's not often that's associated with our environment, with our third dimensional world on this planet. So making that connection between what's, I want to say, up there, as in the esoteric world, to what's down here on earth plane, living a life in that plane, but on the third dimensional plane, is challenging. I feel like there are many people who are probably constantly challenged with what society and what the world around us dictates for how we should live.
Yeah. I think you're right. But I think too that the more that you're doing it, and the more that when you're shifting your vibration, you're aligning to people that match that. So those people understand that, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do this instead. And so, yeah, when you're interacting with family, it might be a little more difficult if they're not on board. But for the most part, I think for me, my life has pretty much, you know, I'm in this higher dimensional bubble, and everybody I talk to is, and, you know, we freely talk about extraterrestrials and everything else. And so that to me is normal now. And to be in that other space is not normal. It's a big shift for me and it almost feels like shifting backwards.
Yeah.
But I could understand when people are in that transition phase and still trying to stand in their own power and really be who they came here to be, there is resistance from people around them. And it is uncomfortable, and it's difficult, and it takes a strong person to push through, for sure.
The nudges and the lessons get louder for us to listen to that, right?
Yeah.
You've had your fair share, and I've definitely had mine, to really push forward and be courageous to step into that space. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people really are now. They're taking this downtime to really do that, which is great.
It is.
Yeah. We need the more people, the more the world changes, right?
That's right. That was I feel the greater purpose and the intention behind this whole piece to awaken more souls, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And just to go back onto your comment about creating a world, so you can create your own world. We often feel that we don't have the power and we don't have the strength to step into that space.
Yeah.
But we can create it. It is available. It's a matter of just turning off or widening those blinders that we are constantly wearing and conditioned to wear, and to tap into something that innate questioning and quest that we have within our inner soul and the inner spirit of ourselves. So
for sure. And that is happening all the time, I think. And as people are awakening, they're coming to that internal realization. You know, when we're entrenched in third dimension, we're the victims of our reality, and everything around us is causing us our pain and our sorrow and everything else. But as we start to wake up and we're moving into those higher dimensional frequencies and moving into 5D, we start to understand that no, I get to choose the reality that I live in, and I'm the one in charge. I'm in control. So yeah, it's amazing to have that realization and then work with it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very liberating, it's very powerful, and it's a huge opportunity to recognize that we are limitless.
Mm-hmm.
We truly are limitless. Not from an egoic standpoint, because that's how I think we have been conditioned to live.
Yeah.
Not to talk about ourselves and not accolade ourselves in any form or fashion, but to minimize. But yet, it's the complete opposite that is available to us.
Mm-hmm.
And you've shown that through all what you have done and what you continue to do. And I'm excited because I feel it like it's on the tip of your tongue of what's going to happen in the next few months for you. So I'm excited to keep connected and hear the next phase of what's to come.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited, and I am honored that you have shared your story and your journey of coming into yourself and really owning and honing the skills that you have and the gifts that do ultimately bring healing to others completely. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you for letting me share my story and hopefully just inspire just one person, right? To trust in their own divinity and really just go into their heart and know that they are divine and they can live a beautiful life. It's for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I'm Naranjan, and you've been listening to Master of Your Crafts podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and join me next week for another episode. Thank you for listening.